It's Tuesday, July 30th, 2019, and this is the Pro and the Con Show, and I am your host, Michael James Ott. Welcome to the show. 15 to 20 minutes, almost every day. I try to do it every single day. I'm sparking. I tell people I'm like a stone on a flint. I'm sparking. Spark, 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 spark. Trying to get people to appreciate that the issues are too complex for bumper stickers, and that we have to at least be open in our hearts and our minds to at least listening to opposing views. And let me just give you a quick analogy why that's important. You don't, very often, we all would actually have very similar views. Not everybody, of course. There's definitely a spectrum of people, but the vast majority of us very often would have the same view if we would just take in the same information. And here's a very simple example. So let's say that you were eating ice cream. Okay, ice cream. So this is something that most people like. And so you could envision, one person's perspective is like, well, I'll just eat ice cream. I'll eat ice cream all day long, all night long. I'll just eat ice cream. And that person, especially, I would love to do that. I love ice cream. And there's a lot of people I'm sure that would be with me. But the reason why I don't is because I'm not ignorant of the fact that ice cream has a lot of fats and sugars in it. And it's in the, if I eat any, excuse me, any significant portions of this routinely, well, I'm going to get fat. I'm going to develop various coronary issues and cholesterol issues and perhaps diabetes and on and on and on. There's many, many detrimental things and maybe even cancer. I think the intake of huge amounts of sugar has been tied at least somewhat to increased risk of getting cancer. Well, all those things, all those health reasons are why, even though I love ice cream, I don't eat it on a regular basis. But just imagine if someone wasn't aware that there are these health issues. And so, ice cream readily available, maybe to them it might not be that expensive, and so just eat ice cream. And so they would be of the opinion that they should be able to eat and would eat all the ice cream in the world. But then, well, okay, Mr. Ice Cream Eater, are you sure? Because if you do if you understand, there is medical evidence here, a preponderance of medical evidence that you just can't eat ice cream all the time. Your teeth are going to rot out of your head. You're going to get all kinds of a plaque in your veins and on and on and on. All the terrible things that would happen if that's all you did was eat ice cream. Well, the same thing is true for the issues that we face, in our communities, as a nation, as a species. We need to at least be open to the understanding or open to the idea that we are not all knowing, that we can be quite ignorant of the other facts. And well, how do you find out those other things? Well, you listen to other people that maybe have come to a different conclusion than you have, and you just kindly and reasonably and fairly ask them, well, why are you thinking the way that you are? Here's why I'm thinking the way that I am. Here's the facts as I know them, and then tell me openly. I'm not passing judgment. I want to know what is it about what you're doing or what you're thinking that causes you to come to significantly different conclusions than I do. And that's the whole purpose behind the Pro and Con Show, and the whole purpose behind me every day, sparking hoping that someone will watch one of these videos and take it into their own hearts and souls for the forevermore, and maybe talk to their families and their friends and their neighbors and their work colleagues about the importance of doing that. The laws in this country, they apply to everyone. And if they're going to be fair, and especially if they're going to be reasoned and reasonable and appropriate, I guess is the very best word. If they're going to be appropriate, then we need to cast a wide net, understand the issues from many sides, and based on the amalgam of what we find out, then we have to be clever. Okay, but humans are clever, so we need to be clever about crafting policy and law that makes sense for the vast majority of us. And I say vast majority because, the exception proves the rule. And in any population of 100 people, you're always going to find somebody that will say no. Not always, but almost always you're going to find somebody that will say no, that they don't agree with the general population, and such as humanity. But for the vast majority of us, by 80, 90, 95% of us, we can get along just fine. We just need to talk things out, step back and understand them, and be open to that understanding, which is a big problem that we suffer from here of late. Okay, so normally go through 5 different streams of information online. So I'm just going to talk about Breitbart. So one of the things I talk about is how, some of these streams of information can be biased. And it's just, some of it is just in the way that they present things. So Breitbart has, they always have like a main headline, and then they have these sub-headlines in the center of the page. And so Breitbart, being a right-leaning publication, if you will, a right-leaning source of information, they want to promote the idea that the Democratic Party is in disarray and in chaos, and they want to, promote the ideas that Mr. Trump, who they mostly support, and the other, so-called conservatives are not in chaos and strong thinking and so on. So, some of the subtitles: Trump, I'm the least racist person there is anywhere in the world. Well, of course, Mr. Trump claims that he is the most, best, most awesome of everything in the world. Wow. To be God, if only to be God. But anyway, so there he is. He was also claiming to be a first responder at the World Trade Center location this week. And by the way, a lot of this I've mentioned multiple times. I'll mention it again. I'm going to keep mentioning it because these are true statements. So one is Mr. Trump is a con man. And I've in past shows I've talked about the litany of attributes that you can, if you check them off, check, then you know this person is a con man, and he fits all 15 attributes perfectly every day. every moment of every day he fits these attributes, and he's a con man. Second thing is Mr. Trump is starting to suffer from dementia. This is more and more clear if you go back, and again, I've looked at this in the past shows, and I will again in the future shows. But there are videos on YouTube where they show Mr. Trump talking on the public television and stuff like that, various occasions from 20, 30 years ago and today. And it's very clear. His syntax is changed tremendously. His grasp of the language has degraded. Uh, I don't know, by a factor of 10 or something. His vocabulary is has to be down to a few hundred words. Now here recently, he's having trouble just reading off of teleprompters. He can't say, read and say the words like a lawmaker. And this is all he is a shell of a man. He is an unfortunate. Okay, I'm not suggesting that Mr. Trump suffering from dementia is his fault. He's getting more and more mentally incapacitated, and that's unfortunate. It's unfortunate for him, but it's also something that's a key thing that everyone should understand in the next election, is that this is truly going on, and be aware of it, and folks, hopefully we can find an alternate to a con man who is rapidly digressing into serious dementia. But maybe we can't. Okay, I give you that maybe we can't, but I personally am going to try very hard to find an alternate candidate to try to promote into the office of the presidency, because it would seem like a con man who's suffering from dementia, there has to be a better alternate, would seem. And then, so while I'm thinking of that, those alternate candidates, again, unfortunately, because of the two-party system, the liberals and conservatives, and the way that our politics has traditionally been done for decades, we have Mr. Trump, who is the incumbent, and therefore, no Republicans so nobody from his party is going to challenge him for the Republican nomination and to try again at the White House, just because incumbents have a tendency to win. So there's no one standing up from the Republic, even though the current president is a con man and rapidly falling into a deeper state of dementia. No one is willing to step forward. And then we have the Democrats on the other side. So instead of the so-called conservatives, we have the so-called liberals. And there's 24 of them in the race, and 20 of them will be appearing in debates today and tomorrow. And in fact, the reason why I'm doing this show early today is I'm going to go, I just want to experience and talk to other potential voters. So I'm going to go to a debate watch party over in Minneapolis and talk to some of the people there and try to understand what they think the strengths and weaknesses of the various candidates are, and I can express my views as well. Again, trying to be a better citizen, trying to understand this thing in more detail than I have in the past, and trying really, really hard to cast a vote for somebody that I think will really help us more than the current president. So, Breitbart has a bunch of other stuff about racism because Mr. Trump has been tweeting a bunch of, frankly, racist stuff. It is. Now, people can say it's not, but it is. And a lot of that, again, has to do with dementia. Okay. Unfortunately, as you slip into the shadows of dementia, the screens, the kind of internal sieves that you have between what you might think and what you might say disappear. And, Mr. Trump has been a borderline kind of guy in this area. Well, basically, what it comes down to is if you say anything negative about him whatsoever, he's going to come out and just say whatever he thinks would be most demeaning to you. And he doesn't care whether it's racist or not. He's just going to throw that out there because that's Donald Trump. Anyway, and so then Fox News, I'm looking here, and a lot of Mr. Trump's ire has been directed at a representative from Baltimore, or the Baltimore district. And so Baltimore is getting a lot of press at the moment about, the crime rate and the poverty level and the conditions in the streets and so on. And of course, Fox News is all over trying to expose why Mr. Trump is appropriately calling out how the horrible conditions in Baltimore. Now, NPR, I've said many times, they have a tendency to be less biased, and their top news is actually a health news thing, talking about vaping and how there's inappropriate compounds in some of the vaping formulations that you can get. Vaping is not as safe as a lot of people were hoping. So let's see here, and then it says Boeing 737 MAX grounding is taking tolls on airlines and passengers. TSA officials find a missile launcher in a Texas man's luggage. Okay. Texas man who said he is an active member of the U.S. military told authorities that the Griffin rocket launcher was a memento from Kuwait. Okay, so right to bear arms. So again, and I've talked about this in the past. It's all okay. Guns, great, fine, but we have to have some kind of reasoned structure around this, right? Guns are very powerful weapons. There's no question about that. They're very powerful, very effective, and therefore, because they're potentially dangerous, they are potentially dangerous because they are powerful and they are effective. They are potentially dangerous, and therefore you have to have some kind of construct around them to, at least try to regulate in certain levels of safety so that, you try to minimize people who don't own guns from being harmed by them. So accidental shootings, intentional shootings, you depending on your opinion about suicide and whether or not people should be allowed to kill themselves, well, guns make suicide that much more effective and efficient. That's a factual statement. And so in this case, this fellow wants to bring home a missile launcher. Of course, if it's just the missile launcher, I suppose, and not the missile, maybe it's all right. But wow, and then some stuff here, and then right toward the bottom it says your guide to tonight's Democratic presidential debate. Yep. And okay, so then we go to CNN, and there's a story at the top about how the Democrats will shrink their numbers from 24 to 1. So I didn't read that, but CNN is taking a shot at opinion about their prognosticating. Well, that's fine, but again, we're going to decide that by determining the popularity of these guys. And so watch the debates. Who, what, where, when? What are these people saying? How well are they saying it? What is your impression of them? their stature on the stage, their truthfulness, so on. And then you make your own decision about whether these people are good candidates. And then Huffington Post, which is the leftmost leaning, their big article is about Elizabeth Warren versus Bernie Sanders. They are in many ways similar, and their agendas are similar. But so here's the one last comment here before I sign off for today, because we're running over a bit. One of the major failings we have is we look at these candidates and we say, well, what are you going to do? Well, we're approaching this the wrong way. We should be looking at these issues and spending time as a nation reviewing the past, reviewing the current situation, reviewing the facts. A few days, dual sessions of Congress, open forums on C-SPAN and other streams of and people can watch and people can summarize and then based on the information, then what are some proposals? So brainstorm some proposals about how to make this better, regardless of what it is. Whether it's taxes or balancing the budget or defense spending or abortion or racism or gun rights or. Okay, and so this is a fallacy. You don't hire, well, sometimes you do, but most often you hire someone to work on your house. You want them to do what you want them to do. Okay, you don't say, well, here, build the house that you want and I'll pay for it. All right, you say, all right, you may have some ideas about the house, but this is the house that I want built. Now you build it. All right. And so, that's part of our issue is we're allowing ourselves to be led by people who have these visions that very often veer either right or left substantially from what the vast majority of us want. And that's what we need to do, is to start telling them, this is the house that we need, build it. And how do you do that? Well, you spend some time studying what house plans might look like. And then you decide what's best, and then you try to build it. Okay? All right, well, out of time for today. This has been the Pro and Con Show. My name is Michael James Ott. Thanks for watching. Another show tomorrow, 15 to 20 minutes every day. Till then, bye for now.